China spends huge amounts of money shaping US foreign policy if it can. So does Qatar. So do lots of countries. So I guess the thing that I'm trying to get to the bottom of, because it's such a big talking point in the US right now, is what is the supposed mechanism by which this tiny country of Israel has this outsized power over the president of the United States?
When a politician explicitly admits on the record to manipulating the president into a foreign conflict, why is the mainstream media so quiet about it? Welcome back to Reactionary Politics. Today, we are breaking down Mehdi Hasan's absolute masterclass on trigonometry, where he brings the receipts and exposes the undeniable lobbying influence shaping US foreign policy. Before we dive into this intense breakdown, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below letting me know what city or country you are watching from. You are going to want to stick around and watch until the very end of this one, because the final point Mehdi drops about the massive disconnect between everyday voters and bought-out politicians changes the entire conversation. Let's get right into the clip.
That divergence is one of the reasons people keep saying, you know, Israel tricked Trump into this war. But, bullied, I think one of you guests on your show recently talked about how he bullied him. And that's where they lose me, because I don't understand what the supposed mechanism is by which Israel bullies America.
Well, I don't know about the word bully, but let me just say in terms of tricked or manipulated, this is not a conspiracy theory. The beauty of these Republicans, and you're in D.C., I know you're going to be speaking to Republicans, the only redeeming feature of the Republican Party right now, they just say the quiet part out loud. People like me don't need to speculate or come up with theory. They just say it. So Lindsey Graham told the Wall Street Journal that I went to Israel and Israel showed me intel that made me think we've got to go to war. That's bizarre. A United States senator went to a foreign government for intel. Then he says, I met with Netanyahu and I coached him, his words, not mine, on how to persuade Trump to get into this war. Again, bizarre that a United States senator and a foreign leader are discussing how they're going to coach, how they're going to persuade, manipulate a sitting president into war. So they're saying this stuff out loud. I'm not absolving Trump of responsibility, but nor am I saying Israel didn't play. Would we be in this war were it not for Israel? No, I think that's very clear.
Of course.
And by the way, if we stop the war tomorrow, just one last point, if Trump would say we're done, we're over, one of the reasons I think he's not is because he's been told the Israelis aren't stopping. And therefore, as long as the Israelis go, we go.
Well, see,
Are we even listening to the same thing? The hosts are playing coy, asking what is this supposed mechanism? Like it's some invisible, mystical force. But Mehdi isn't having it, and he brought the receipts. He literally points out that politicians, who usually keep the quiet part quiet, are saying this out loud. Lindsey Graham admitted on the record that he got intel from a foreign government, and then coached Netanyahu on how to manipulate a sitting US president into a conflict. How is this even up for debate? Mehdi just absolutely dismantled their attempt to frame this as some wild conspiracy theory. It's not a conspiracy if they are bragging about it in the Wall Street Journal. You can't just ignore the blatant fact that Israel holds a massive, undeniable sway over US foreign policy, especially when it comes to Iran. Mehdi is absolutely crushing this by staying completely grounded in verifiable reality.
I'm doing, Mehdi, is trying to pass logically the things that people are saying, including...
logic and Trump doesn't always go in the same sentence.
Well, sure, fine. But I guess what I'm saying is this. If President Trump didn't want to do this, he wouldn't do it.
Agreed. We are in 100% agreement.
He could very easily say to Iran, we have nothing to do with this. And in fact, we're not even going to shoot down your ballistic missiles if you shoot them at Israel, because we'd want no part in this. And then none of this will be going on. So that's the bit where people lose me when they talk about Israel. I mean, every country wants to manipulate the United States into doing what
and they've been doing it well under Trump.
But
he's easily manipulated.
Russia wants him to make it easier for them in Ukraine. Ukraine wants it to make it easier for them to defeat Russia. China spends huge amounts of money shaping US foreign policy if it can. So does Qatar. So do lots of countries. So I guess the thing that I'm trying to get to the bottom of, because it's such a big talking point in the US right now, is what is the supposed mechanism by which this tiny country of Israel has this outsized power over the president of the United States?
So a couple of things. One is, it's not mutually exclusive, is it, Konstantin, to say that Donald Trump has responsibility. He's a grown man. He may not act like a grown man, but is a grown man and has to take responsibility for decisions he makes. That's not mutually exclusive with saying, but the Israelis also tricked him, manipulated him, lobbied him, bullied him, pressured him. Both of those things can be true at the same time.
All I'm asking is, what is the mechanism?
Okay, so let's come to that. But we accept that both those things can be true.
Of course,
So now we come to what is the Israelis doing. You would accept that. You just listed a bunch of countries, and the Gulf, the Qataris have a lot of influence, the Emiratis have a lot of influence, the Russians, sadly, have a lot of influence with Trump. you would accept that none of those countries come close to Israel's influence. I don't think there's any question mark about Israel's influence on American policies. The question you're asking about is how.
What's the mechanism?
No one would deny. I mean, you watched the Ted Cruz interview with Tucker Carlson that went viral not long ago. Cruz says, I came into politics to defend Israel. They don't say that about any other country. I've never heard an American senator say, I came into politics to defend Belgium. Never heard it. Never heard anyone talk about any other country the way.
Just to interject one more thing, if I may. That's not necessarily evidence of Israel having influence. It might well be a case of there are lots of people who live in America who believe for whatever reason, for religious reasons or for geopolitical reasons, that this is a country with which America should have a close alliance.
So 100% I agree with you. There are Christian evangelicals in this country who believe that the rapture will happen when all the Jews are gathered in this place, and they are even more hardcore pro-Israel than a lot of pro-Israeli Jews. That's 100% true. But there are also a bunch of people in American politics. I know, I've met them, I've interviewed them. They tell me this on and off the record, who are supporting Israel because they're worried about being primaried. They're worried about losing their jobs. They're worried about being called anti-Semitic. They're worried about being targeted by AIPAC. They're worried about being targeted by their political opponents, et cetera, et cetera. The idea that there isn't a very, very powerful pro-Israel lobby is absurd. Just as there is a very powerful gun lobby, just as there is a very powerful farm. Funny that when we in this city, people are happy to say you're owned by the gun lobby, but for good reasons, because of anti-Semitic tropes, people don't want to say you're owned by the Israel lobby.
There's a good reason.
There is a good reason,
of course.
But the fact is,
let me just
there is an Israel lobby that has massive oversized influence on American politics.
The distinction I'm.
This right here is a masterclass in shutting down bad faith arguments. The hosts try to tiptoe around the issue, acting as if mentioning the Israel lobby is somehow crossing a line. But Mehdi flips it perfectly. We talk about the gun lobby, the farmer lobby, and the fossil fuel lobby all day long. Why is this any different? He is fiercely pointing out the obvious truth. It's about money, power, and political survival in DC. Politicians are terrified of being primaried, losing their funding, or getting smeared by AIPAC. It is completely rational to point out that a foreign government is using a massive domestic lobbying arm to push the US into a war with Iran that serves their interests, not necessarily ours. Mehdi is refusing to let them sanitize the situation. He's cutting through the noise and exposing the absolute chokehold this lobby has on American politicians. It's raw, it's honest, and it's about time someone said it without apologizing.
Trying to make, and I think it's an important one, and it's good that we're exploring this, which is, I think the reason people worry about calling it the Israeli lobby versus the gun lobby is the Israeli lobby implies some kind of foreign influence, right? Whereas the point that I think you and I are both making, actually, and in agreement on, is there are lots and lots of Americans who, for whatever reasons, their own personal reasons, view this as an important strategic alliance of the United States or a religious worldview or whatever. So, and I think that's where the distinction becomes difficult.
I think you're, in good faith, overstating the other part of the argument, maybe for argument's sake or devil's advocacy. All I'm saying is, let me give you one example. When you ask Democratic voters, do you support what Israel's doing in Gaza? 8%, according to one poll, said we support it. The
Democrats don't support it. Okay?
Vast majority don't support it. When you go look at Democrats in Congress, the vast majority do support it. There's an absolute disconnect. The numbers are reversed.
And why is that?
That's exactly my point. Why is that? It's not because they're all out for self-interest. It's because they're lobbied by various lobbies, the military-industrial complex, which also has interest in war, the pro-Israel lobby, vast influence that there's money in politics that influence a lot of positions in this country. You're in this town, this whole town is very corrupt, right? The way you influence people is through money, and the same thing with Israel. By the way, you mentioned foreign lobbying. Well, I said Israel lobby, not Israeli lobby, the lobby for Israel. That can be Americans. But let's just be clear, there's a long history of people trying to get the pro-Israel lobby to register as a foreign agent, just as some pro-Arab lobbies have to register as foreign agents. You go back to RFK, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he wanted to register the precursor to AIPAC. Senator William Leahy, very famous Democrat senator in the 70s, said we should register as a foreign lobby. So there's been a debate for a long time as to whether AIPAC and other such groups should actually register, because they do seem to coordinate with the Israeli government. So that's a separate issue. But look, I take your point. There are many Americans who support Israel. But if you look at the polling, Konstantin, you're in D.C. at a time when, in astonishing polls I never thought I'd see in my lifetime, that Americans have now switched. They are now supporting Palestinians more than they support Israel. First time in my lifetime. I never thought I would see those polls. Sadly, it took a genocide and tens of thousands of Palestinians to get Americans to switch their positions. But again, if that doesn't translate into Congress, into the presidency, then you have to ask why. Do we have a Democrat?
Let's just let that sink in for a second. Mehdi just exposed the ultimate proof of how broken this system is. When the vast majority of your voters want one thing, but your politicians do the exact opposite in Congress, that is not a functioning democracy. That is a bought and paid for political class. He didn't just win the argument, he buried it. The hosts have absolutely no comeback for this because the numbers speak for themselves. Mehdi successfully proved that this isn't about what the American people want. It's about what a highly funded, aggressive lobby demands. It's infuriating to think that the US is being dragged into a catastrophic conflict with Iran just to appease a foreign government and protect politicians' campaign funds. Mehdi Hasan just delivered a flawless reality check. Mehdi really laid bare just how deep this lobbying influence goes, and the numbers absolutely do not lie. What did you think of his arguments? Do you agree with his take? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Thanks for tuning into Reactionary Politics, and I'll catch you in the next one.